Paul writing a letter to Corinth. Paul founded the church in Corinth in 52, 53, 54. Paul was in Corinth for a year and a half. A year and a half, and he founded the Christian church in Corinth. Corinth was a commercial metropolitan area in Greece. It's 50 miles from Athens. Athens, the capital of Greece, go west 50 miles, city of Corinth. During the Roman Empire, Corinth was the fourth largest city in the Roman Empire. I could ask you, what are the other three? I bet all of you could get the first one. Rome. Rome was the largest by far. The second largest was Alexandria, which is in Egypt. And then the third largest was Antioch, where they were first called Christians, where we talked about last week. And the fourth is Corinth. Paul founded them on the second missionary journey. On the third missionary journey, he comes to Ephesus. And while at Ephesus, a group of leaders from the church at Corinth that he founded, there were problems going on in the church at Corinth, and a group of leaders went 200 miles. They heard and knew Paul was at Ephesus, and they went 200 miles east to Asia Minor and told Paul, we got trouble back in the church. We need help. So he turned around and he wrote this letter, 1 Corinthians, back to the church that he founded 3 years earlier. The church, this was written in 57 A.D. I'll give you an idea. Christ's death was 30. Okay, 40, 50, were 27 years from the death of Christ when Paul writes this letter back to the church he founded. He founded the church at Corinth. Nathan, thank you. We have a number of people that really depend on that, and that's tremendous. Thank you, Nathan, for doing that. Those of you that are on live stream, welcome. We want to welcome you to Cedar Street Church Sunday School this morning. Now, these unchangeable cultures, unchangeable things that have occurred. In the last number of years, let's talk about the Churches of Christ and Christian Union that we are affiliated with. What's happened within our denomination in the last 10 years? We have several African American churches. Boston, Massachusetts, and New York City, Brooklyn. We have 2 African American churches that, and I think there are a couple other ones as well, but I'm aware of them. Also, the Caribbean, the churches in the Caribbean have expanded. Also, more than anything, the Hispanic churches have expanded in the last 10 years in the Churches of Christ and Christian Union, and I believe now we have somewhere between 15 and 20 Hispanic churches. I know we have 15 Hispanic churches within the United States. And then what's happened also, we now have 6 Hispanic churches in Mexico that actually came in, and this is God. A young boy who went through El Salvador, the boys' farm school, became a pastor, and ended up in a large city in Mexico, and he is now pastoring a church of 500 members and attendants in their church, and he called our district superintendent, Gary Wayne Heimbach, and he said, our church has decided that we want to come into the church. And he also has set out 5 satellite churches within 100 miles of that church that have a total of 300 attendants. Gary and Mike Holbrook went down there in November, and they voted when they were down there to have them come into the church of Churches of Christ and Christian Union. And in July, up at Niption, our South Central District voted to bring them into our district. So we have 6 churches in Mexico that have a total attendance of 800 people, 500 in itself. It, pardon? Yeah, and there's no debt whatsoever. The reason they wanted to do it, because the pastor has the same teaching and the same doctrine of the Churches of Christ and Christian Union. He grew up in El Salvador, in Honduras, the boys' school, and and he has been teaching and training his churches to have the same teaching and the same doctrine. Yes, in a country that's very Catholic. Mexico's probably 85 to 90% Catholic, and yet the Word of God. Changeable cultures, yes. Unchangeable gospel, and that's the thing I want to let you know about what's happening in Mexico. The pastor and the people there believe and teach and have the doctrine that we believe and teach in. So that's awesome. That is wonderful. And then the many other things that have been in our lessons in the in this quarter. Interracial marriages, changeable cultures, homosexuality, we've had a lesson on that, transgender, all of the things that are changing, but we can't change what the truth and the foundation of the Word is, the gospel of Jesus Christ. Wow, that was a good introduction, wasn't it? All right, we're going to go 5 verses. Man, 5 verses. Paul, writing back to the church at Corinth, Paul says, "For though I be free from all men, yet have I made myself a servant unto all, that I may gain the more." He has said, I am now free. I was and I am a slave to God. Paul here is employing an analogy that would have been well communicated in the first century Roman Empire. Within the empire, more people lived in slavery. I've said that before. There was somewhere between 50 and 55% of all of the Roman Empire were slaves. Less than half were free people in the Roman Empire. When we're talking about millions of people, in upward of probably 10 million people in the Roman